Oh, Garner, the podcast, what a blow. 49% of National voters think National should dump Christopher Luxon. It is brutal. And Bishop and Erica Stanford have emerged as the front runners to replace him. My panel, Maurice, Williamson and David Farrar will join me to discuss this and the week in politics. So let's go.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, proudly sponsored by the Brothers Green. Unlock the innate power of New Zealand botanicals to support your mobility. Try the Brothers Green New Zealand Move Joint Support Tonic and join over 20,000 other Kiwis experiencing easier movement. For as little as $1 a day, you too can experience the power of New Zealand hemp seed oil for your joint health. Head to brothersgreen.co and use code DG20 at the checkout for 20% off your first order. It's a good one. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch. G'day, good evening. Welcome to Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief. Nice to have your company. Good to have you along, and please subscribe. And also, of course, for $7.99 a month, if you text my name, Duncan, to 3598, you can get bonus content, all sorts of things. Ask Me Anything sessions on Friday, which we're about to send out our subscriber podcast shortly. So get involved. Join Team Duncan. Stay in the fight. Make sure that we're doing it and mainstream media isn't, because you know they're not. So stick with us. $7.99 a month, 3598. Text the word Duncan and you sign up and you're with Team Duncan. Get involved. Don't miss out. If you got FOMO, fear of missing out, the centre-right stays in government, but it's Luxon and National's performance, which is slipping in this poll, so we'll debate that. Is it Bishop and Stanford, or is it Stanford and Bishop? Who takes the top spot? And I'll get my panel's take on Te Pāti Māori's collapse. What an abysmal train wreck it is for them, isn't it? And all of their own making. Sympathy? No. I'll ask Maurice, what was Jim Bolger really like? So let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
It's getting noisy, isn't it, in the National dugout, and the whispers are turning into war drums. These polls don't help Chris Luxon sleep at night. At some point, National will have to address this issue, won't they? As it's quite distracting. He says he doesn't pay too much attention to the polls. It's a bit like saying that the All Blacks don't care about the score each time they play. Popularity is everything in politics. And if Luxon doesn't pay much attention to the polls, how come he knows that there's 3 in the last 10 days?
Yeah, I'm not too focused on polls. I think I've seen 3 in the last 10 days.
Voters aren't just souring on the government. They are starting to wonder whether the captain even knows where the game's going. And now the names Bishop and Stanford are echoing louder than ever in caucus corridors. They really are. In this latest poll, National was sinking just 31% in this freshwater stuff poll. Labor's ahead. How I don't know. But they're ahead at 34%. Yet National can still pull a coalition together, but only just. Luxon is lagging. In the preferred PM stakes, again, he's 36%. Only 36 prefer him as PM. Hipkins is at 45. How on earth does Hipkins have a gap like that over Luxon? How on earth? It's a gap you can't ignore. ACT and New Zealand First are eating the party's lunch, sitting on 9% and 11% respectively. There's 20% of the centre-right vote right there. Leadership pressure is mounting. According to the Freshwater poll, half of all voters think that National should change their leader. 22% of people said if they did, they'd vote National. Of those that ranked the highest to replace Christopher Luxon, Erica Stanford was 12%. Chris Bishop, Wellington MP, 16%. They have now clearly emerged as the front runners.
I'm just focused on my portfolios. Housing and infrastructure and transport keep me busy enough.
That's what you say when you're a leader in waiting. It's safe and meaningless. Bishop would take the job if his MPs wanted him to. He's a political animal. He lives and breathes this stuff and has done since he was a teenager. Stanford is equally as disciplined, potentially more impressive as well. And, well, she's very disciplined with her answer. Look at this.
I just want to be a popular candidate for the Minister of Education, if I'm honest with you.
And she is a good education minister. The poll is a red alert for Luxon. There is no way that Luxon should be polling this poorly 2 years in. It's not because of the recession entirely. It's because of his performance. It is unheard of to be polling like this. And given the performance of Labour and the Greens and Te Pāti Māori, it's almost unbelievable that they are still in the mix. It is Luxon that's keeping them in the game, isn't it? I find Hipkins' views of the coalition hilarious. If what he says is true, then he should have resigned 2 years ago himself.
The National Party have had a shocking term in government, and Christopher Luxon needs to accept responsibility for that.
So what does National do now? Likely it can't panic. But equally, it's ridiculous that Labour, the Greens and Te Pāti Māori are anywhere near this coalition in popularity. They shouldn't be in the same conversation. I say Luxon has got 3 months to turn it around and to save himself. If he goes backwards from here, then come early next year, a nervous National Party may just lose patience and pounce. Now, my panel will probably doubt that that's going to happen. And it's always much harder to unseat a sitting Prime Minister, we know that. But national voters will find it unforgivable if they take Luxon to the election, to the polls, and the left somehow form an MMP government. It will be unacceptable, making this coalition a one-term wonder. If Luxon doesn't pull off a reset fast, then it won't matter how loyal the front bench appears. The base is restless, the press is circling, and the next poll might just be the tipping point. Yet if Hipkins, Swarbrick, Davidson, Waititi, Ferris and Naliwa Paka are the answer, then what on earth is the question? A centre-left party that will spend, a centre-left coalition that will spend and tax more, and the Māori Party out of control is likely to see a mass exodus out of this country. And you won't be able to grab a seat to Australia for love or money.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
We've all been there, right? Come home from a long day at work, sit down and then get the inevitable what's for dinner. Being too tired to cook or even drive to the shop, Uber One is your answer. Joining Uber One gives you $0 delivery fee on eligible orders, 5% Uber credit on all rides, and exclusive offers through Uber, Uber Eats and their partners. And if you sign up before the end of the year, you'll also get $10 off Uber cashback. Wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? Join Uber One today and start reaping the benefits. It ends December 31st. T's and C's, a minimum spend and fees apply. Okay, so Maurice Williamson and David Farrar. Pollster join me now. Maurice, of course, former National Party Minister. Both of them join me. Lads, gents, g'day, good evening, welcome to the program.
Thank you lots.
Congratulations, firstly, Maurice. Back as an Auckland City Councillor, you'd be happy. Huge hard work you do out there.
Yeah, it's sort of not sure whether it's congratulations or commiserations when you get back onto something like the Auckland Council, but I'm back for another term, but a hell of a lot of structural breakdown of the operations needed. But let's not talk about it. I'll have to go and see my guidance counsellor again.
Yeah, well, your shrink's waiting. Hey, just before we go, does it help having been a minister when you become a councillor?
It sort of helps in that you know what to ask. You know how to hold people to account and what are the metrics you're going to use and how you're going to judge whether you've made progress. The problem with that is you've got to get 11 out of the 20 people voting your way. Mm. We don't have political parties represented at at local government, although we actually do. Several of the members of our council are Labour and say Labour and have Labour written on their cars. And 2 of them last term, Lotto Fully and Kieran Leone, were the next 2 people off Labour's list. Mm. So if there'd ever been a death or a resignation from Labour, 2 of our councillors were the next 2 to go. But I've tried to persuade the National Party for years and years that your poor old voter out there in voting land has not got a clue when they're presented with 35 surnames, who's what and where. And surely having something represented to a political party and what their sort of profile of policies were would make you at least have a better going. Now, I've asked this of the National Party in sort of public forums. Why is it that every comparable jurisdiction you can name, Australia, Britain, France, Germany, Canada, United States, do allow you to vote right down the ballot? When I lived in Los Angeles, we got voting papers for the local school board, and the people's names had an R or a D after their name, Republican or Democrat, for the school board. And all I've asked, if you're going to have people going now, Auckland Council is way bigger than a local body. I mean, we are a third of of New Zealand. We're a third of the population, third of the GDP. We're more like a state government would be in Australia in terms of we spend 10 billion budget a year, 5 on OPEX and 5 on CAPEX. You can't leave that to just a random group of people whose names you recognise or don't. So I'll vote for that Anderton and that Clark and that Bassett because they're the A, Bs and Cs. Oh, I've done my 3 people. I haven't even got down to the S's or the W's or whatever. Yeah. So there's a massive, and the other part of it is postal voting is just ridiculous. Yeah. It makes nobody participate, and we've got to. So if local government doesn't get a massive bloody reform done to it, now I get why in the Eketahuna or the Huranui District Council, where they've only got 8,000 voters, and your mother's running the council and your father's head of the roading authority. But Auckland's we are if you take the percentage of the country, we are bigger than any state is of Australia.
Yeah.
So if you take New South Wales, we are we are 33, they're 29. If you
Yeah.
take Victoria, 33, they're 27% of the country. So we're more like a state government than a local authority, but it's not run that way.
I'm going to pick it up here. So, David, now the antics of the Māori Party, Te Pāti Māori. I've never seen this. This is abusive. This guy, Edu Kapukingi, has allegedly threatened a security guard. It doesn't get much worse.
Now, he comes over as thuggish, doing the "my mother's an MP, how dare you ask to see my badge." It's terrible. But here's the thing, TPM's known about this for a year. He was their VP. They kept him on as that. He was spokesperson for their affiliated protest organisation. It's only when he turned on them that they revealed this, and more that they put this dossier out on him and his mother, which I've never seen before in politics. Like, MPs sometimes fall out with their pays. Maurice is the expert on this. I think Maurice here once suspended by caucus.
I resemble that remark.
But when Maurice was there, you didn't have the National Party caucus turn around and say, this is a dossier of all the crap we've ever found out about Maurice, trying to destroy him. What Te Pāti Māori have done is put out such damaging stuff on their own MP. She could not carry on, I think, as an MP for them or a candidate at next election. So I think we're going to see a split into two Te Pāti Māoris. The Tamahiri one and the other one.
Wouldn't they exercise the waka jumping legislation?
They could try, and that would be very interesting because you need 2/3 majority in caucus. So 4 out of the 6 MPs could waka jump the other 2, but that means by-elections. And if they both stand, well, actually, Labour might come through the middle and win the by-elections.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever it is, though, it's train wreck stuff, isn't it, Maurice?
But Duncan, it's just the arrogance, and I think I raised this last time. My first day in Parliament, we got all this training, it was sort of the indoctrination about what you can and can't do and how you have to address the speaker and you must bow when you're coming and going. And one of the things we were told is when the bell rings, you have to sit down. You can't just keep talking. That is an absolute no-no. So Irini Kaiperi comes to do her thing. They'd done an agreement with Jerry that they could do it for a quarter of an hour after question time. It was supposed to be at the end of the day when it wouldn't matter. If you let it happen at 5:45, you can run on till 7 o'clock and you don't affect anything because it just can carry on. But they wanted it brought up, so he gave them the right to bring it up. He said it's got to be for a quarter of an hour. You can do what you want within that. Much of it is speech as you like. You can do a waiata in there as well. You can even do a haka. So they're going on about culturally insensitive, can't do waiatas, can't do haka. Jerry says, no, absolutely fine for you to have done a haka, absolutely fine for you to have done a waiata. What I said is if you're going to be taking up parliamentary time, you can and bring it back to straight after question, you get 15 minutes. You do within that. And they agreed. They signed up to that and agreed. And guess what? They never had any intention of ever abiding by that. No intention whatsoever. And I just know why Jerry, after he'd read out his huge monologue, was sort of bigger than War and Peace about the breaches of this and you failed to honour your commitments and you wouldn't do this, and then just said, but it's only Irini Kaiperi's first day. It was only a quarter of an hour after she'd just been sworn in. Can't really start taking disciplinary action against somebody then, so I'll let it pass. Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Try doing this on the M&I. Go in there and break their rules and see how you go.
As I think I said to you again last week, I had to do 18 Māori broadcasting hui on the MRI. And I had Hiwi Tāroa and Toby Curtis as my cultural advisors. They taught me how to open up, and I could do about 5 minutes in Māori language to open the speech. Then you had to go up to accept or to put the koha down and then step back, and then the challenge. And I wasn't allowed my private secretary, Bridie Wilkinson, to sit beside me, which she would normally do, to give me pieces of paper. She had to sit in the back row because women weren't allowed. We abided by it all. We did, and we practiced it and we rehearsed it, so we weren't seen as offensive on the MRI. And that's as it should be. But Parliament is Parliament, and you come there and you say, well, we're not going to abide by your bloody rules. Get stuffed. Ask them how would they feel it if we took that attitude on their MRI.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you probably get a whack from that Cup of King. You go, he's a boffer boy, David, isn't he? I mean, the guy's a boffer boy, isn't he?
Oh, look, when I read the transcript of what that security guard, he was swearing, he was cursing, he was threatening them. And Duncan and Maurice were there. These guys, the security guards at Parliament, aren't these like US ICE agents. They're the nicest guys you can meet. They are so good to deal with. And for them to have to put up with this guy just ranting at them, rather than just doing what we all do, which is, oh yeah, I've actually got a badge, here it is. It's not difficult. And Maurice is so right too on the contempt they show for the Takanga of Parliament, rather demanding there must be respected the other way. I'm a big believer in two-way respect.
Right.
They only seem to think it goes one way.
But they've got the other
Maurice, New Zealanders have had enough of this.
Caucus.
Yeah,
The
but
guy
New Zealanders have had enough of this.
and saying it's disgusting and evil and so on, and the team leaders even say, "Oh, what he said was wrong, and we're going to speak to him about it." And he says, "They've never even spoken to me about it."
Yeah, I know, Ferris, yeah. But New Zealanders, I reckon that there's a big silent majority out there, right? And I think that silent majority is actually starting to emerge and say so. And they've had enough, Maurice. You talk to people about this all the time.
Yeah, we just had a big public meeting here in the electorate this morning with Erica Stanford and Simeon. And there was a couple of issues about this brought up. And you never felt the groundswell so strong from the audience about this has just got to stop. And the one thing I think that came out of it that got probably the biggest clap was Jerry has finally said he's going to resort to some dress code standards again. Because you've got people in that parliament that look like an unmade bed. And they sit there, and if anyone from overseas was ever looking at this group of wearing cowboy hats and top hats out of some bloody rodeo or something, if anyone looked at that, they'd say, that's the New Zealand Parliament. They say, yeah, you're right. No, it is. And so I don't know whether Jerry will do it because he doesn't seem to follow through on anything that he said. I am going to throw any member out if they talk again, and it happens again, and he doesn't do anything. And well, this is the last warning, and he still lets it go. So hopefully he will bring some dress standards back into the place where it looks like a parliament and not like a bloody three-ring circus.
What do you reckon, David, with Jerry? I mean, we all know Jerry really well, and he likes to be liked. He likes to be, jovial and fun and all that sort of thing. But there is a time now where he's got to come down and not be negotiable, right?
He does. It's absolutely no more Mr. Nice Guy. For Jerry is a nice guy, and other speakers have made the point that none of them have ever had to pot up with what Jerry's had to pot up with. Because everyone else in the PA, they might disagree with speakers' rules, but they basically try to obey the rules. So I think it is time for Jerry to come down hard. He can't do it by himself. He needs standing orders and business committee to agree. The real danger, though, isn't so much for Jerry. I think Chris Hipkins has a terrible dilemma because people, as Maurice said, hate Te Pāti Māori. Not everyone, but the majority of New Zealanders are turned off. But I'm a pollster, 67 polls since the last election. The number that show Labour can govern without Te Pāti Māori is 0. So the pressure is on him to rule them out. I don't mean the Claytons rule them out. We won't have them in cabinet. I mean the John Key rule them out. If we have to rely for them to form a government, we'll remain in opposition, like he did with Winston in 2008. Because, if I'm planning Nationals campaign, it would be all about Te Pāti Māori.
And I'm surprised it's not now.
Can I pick David up on one thing about Jerry?
Sure.
I'm not sure I agree with you so much because Jerry does one thing that any parent with kids knows you can't do, and that is you keep banging that bloody thing against the wall and you're off to your bedroom. Now that's the last warning. Now I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. You do that with kids and they completely ignore you. They know nothing's going to happen. If you watch Parliament Question Time on a regular basis, and I'm sad enough that I do, is I watch it late at night on a rerun, but the number of times he is threatening, I am not putting up with this anymore. If anyone keeps doing that, yelling across the house when someone's asking a question, you'll be having an early shower. And someone does it, and he does another warning. And then someone else does it, and he gives them another warning. And he doesn't want to be seen as the man who throws people out. But my view is if you've been told there's a rule, and if you won't stick to it, then you're going to, then he's got every right to say, you're out, I'm not putting up with it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do it. He lets it. And, of course, it just descends into chaos by the end of
That's why it is now. That's why we have that now.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Erica Stanford before, Maurice, that she was at a public meeting this morning.
Yeah.
How impressive do you reckon she is?
Outstanding. I tell you what, it was like sort of being at a Pentecostal revivalist meeting, the claps and the cheers, because she talked about setting some standards in education, getting kids to learn to multiply and divide, and finding that our kids are coming to secondary school and can't even multiply and divide 4x4s and 2x2s and so on. And so she's literally taken sort of the woke operators within the ministry and said, that stops right now. We're going to have our kids learn skills that are of value to them. And she went through multiple examples, and I've never seen an audience so wanting to keep clapping at the end of each sentence, because she was finally doing something they've been desperate for some time. But the wokesters of this world say, well, why don't we have a child-led learning where the child decides what it is they want to learn?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't. How much longer can you hold this woman back from being promoted, David? And when I say promoted, I'm not sure I'm saying the PM's office, but what do you do with her?
She doesn't want any other portfolio than education, certainly not this term. She spent 3 years in opposition. I agree with Maurice. She's incredibly good, both because she's got the policy right. She knew exactly what she wants to do. In 2 years, she's totally reformed the education system, but she's also getting the politics right, where the parents love what she's doing. She announced abolishing NCEA, and no one opposed it, not even Labour or the unions. They just grumbled a wee bit about consultation, but basically that they all agree. But she doesn't want to do anything else other than education. In terms of portfolio, like after the election, it could be a different thing, but she wants to get through. So there will be a reshuffle in January, probably. I'd be very surprised she might lose immigration, maybe pack up something in the economic sphere, because let's be blunt, if we're talking future leadership, she's a contender, and I'm not talking this term, but we can talk about that. For her to prove herself as a future leader, she will need to show she can perform outside one portfolio. So if you want to groom her for a future leadership role, I would do something like looking at giving her SOEs or something to expand her.
I reckon, though, that when you look at that, I think she will. If you look at her the way her framework and how she deals with things, I think you give her another portfolio, she'll excel at that too, Maurice.
Yeah, I think she's very much like Simeon, because he was at the meeting too. Whatever you give Simeon, I mean, there are portfolios he'd never had a bar of in the past. Suddenly you give it to him, and he sort of draws his plan, has his endpoints, does this, how do I measure? Now who am I going to hold to account? Calls chief executive and new game in town, get started from here, and just, you point him in the right direction and light the blue touch paper. And that's very much what Erica's done in her portfolios, both of them. And they're very, very effective ministers. The thing that she raised this morning, which was interesting, she said, now you realise that I've come to the end of my second year in this portfolio. She said, you can't change the first year in education because it's predetermined before you get sworn in the coming year. All of the curriculum documents are out, all of the agreements about what you can and can't do. So she literally had to have a whole year of getting ready to bring it in for this year, and we're only starting to see the results in the structured literacy achievements levels and so on. She's outstanding. She is an outstanding minister, and so is Simeon Brown.
And so that freshwater poll this week, which has national governing with New Zealand First and Act, but it has Luxon's numbers just softening a bit, and the question's been asked, and this is the problem when the question's asked, people are asking the question, which is, who should we replace Luxon? And 49% say, yeah, why not? And then who should replace him? And then it's Chris Bishop and Erica Stanford. They're the two names. They are the future of the party in that sense, aren't they, David?
Well, first of all, look, I can't think of anything more suicidal than changing the Prime Minister in your first term in government. It would be chaos and no one who's taken over midterm one. But put that to one side. If we're talking in the future, the four leading contenders are Simeon, Erica, Nicola, and Bish. And two in Auckland, two in Wellington. So I would say one of them from Wellington and one of them from Auckland is going to be leader and deputy. The exact combination, will depend on how they're performing at the time. And also, of course, it's not a public vote, it's a caucus decision. The poll that Freshwater did, the results were a bit meaningless. Most people don't really know, right? Bish won on 16%. But what was noticeable is they're asking the question, because they do think Luxon's coming under a bit of pressure. When Ardern and Key were in their heyday, no one was polling.
No one asked this.
Should they go? So what's significant is just that the media have said we can have a bit of fun here by asking the question, but it doesn't change the dynamics that it'd be crazy to make a change. Caucus isn't crazy. None of those who are ambitious to be leader one day, and that's probably most of caucus, want it at this stage in time.
Maurice?
No one ever wanted to become the captain of the Titanic after it had hit the iceberg. And so that's the problem now. It'd be the end of your political career if you were to go into the leadership, unless you were able to do some massive turnaround. And so I think you'll go into the election with Luxon leading it. And when I'm critical of National, everyone says, oh, you're a bit too critical of National. I keep saying it's not because I don't want them to win. I desperately need them to win. I'm just asking to lift your game, stand for something. When Luxon gives an answer, which every now and then he nails something really well, I go, yes, we need to see so much more of that than a word salad, which at the end of it, you have no idea whether he said yes or no.
Now, who gave him the title, the Great Helmsman, Jim Bolger? It was himself, wasn't it, David?
I don't think it was. I think it started as an irony. I think it was ironic, and it sort of caught on, etc. Your story, though, about the Great Helmsman reminds me just of another title which he accidentally ended up in the 96 campaign. It was Wellington Town Hall. And he did like to think of himself as a huge person, as a global leader, etc., with Obama and meeting the Queen. So this video of him meeting all the world leaders, and the caption underneath was Bolger, the world sage. But they didn't line the projector up, and the E was missing. And so half of conference is in hysterics as Bolger, father of 9 children, actually has a caption of Bolger, the world stag, portrayed on the main town hall, etc. So he was the great helmsman. We had Spud one, etc. But you know what? There's a pattern to this. People underestimate him. They said he was dumb. Longy called him dumb. They threw a pen at each other. They said he left school without school cert, which today you would think, wow, that person's got no future. And he won 3 elections in a row.
Yeah, I reckon he was underrated. I thought he was a lot more wily than people gave him credit for, Maurice.
Yeah, I think in the history of New Zealand, he is one of our best ever prime ministers. The first thing is he was allowing ministers to have their head. He changed that after the first term with Ruth, but for the first term, he went with that hard stuff that we had to do. I thought, I was asked on radio yesterday, what would you, if you summed him up in one word, the word that came to mind was pragmatic. He was really capable of trying to find a solution to something, telling his ministers, I want this to be done. You go away and sort out how to achieve it, and we'll hold you to account if you don't. I like the guy. The one thing I do know, when you're on the end of a big telling off, as I was on a couple of occasions, he would go
a couple?
Well, way more than a couple. You know, as politicians, we exaggerate. But he would go so calm. I am not happy in the slightest at your behaviour. There was no yelling, there was no scream, and you could tell when that calm quietness came across his face, he was really pissed off and going to let you know. I like the guy. I think he's going down in history as one of our best prime ministers. Again, things like the treaty settlements, at a time when National would have been seen as not part of that world at all. He just basically pragmatically said, these things will fester and cause more problems to our society if we do not find a solution space. and literally had a whole lot of his own ministers and a lot of his backbenchers saying there's no need to be doing this, and he just shepherded it through. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, damn good stuff to have done.
Nadi Wapaka said he was the greatest Prime Minister, didn't she?
She did say he was the greatest. What Maurice said about how he would never lose his rag temper. His great friend and colleague, they were the closest colleague, Bill Birch, was quite similar. Treasury staff tell me that if in a meeting he would just pinch his nose and go, "This is a bit untidy," that was the equivalent of Murray McCully throwing a chair at you saying you're the stupidest bastard who's ever lived. Treasury knew that Birch saying this is a bit untidy was actually really, really strong. And I think we sort of missed that generation to a degree of politicians who didn't have to raise their voices. We were talking about Te Pāti Māori before. I mean, saying my mother's an MP, you effing see, etc.
Oh, no.
Just so different.
I'll give you a quick example of just, Bolger would really lay out to you what had been a problem for him and then say, I expect better. Now go away and sort it, and would let you go away and do. There was no, I'm not putting up with this rubbish, and I'm not, and it was more effective. I tell you, I had the old sphincter muscles grabbing the leather chair when I'm before him. The guy could really put the frighteners on you by being so focused and so calm. A really good story from Birch. I'll just tell a quick Birch. My first week in Parliament, you have the address and reply. This is in 1987. And Roger Douglas came down to the House and gave a fabulous, an absolutely fabulous speech about he'd only got so far through his reforms and there was so much more to be done, and this is what he wanted to achieve. I'm sitting there just saying, oh, this is outstanding. This is brilliant. All of the Labour people who sit next to me on the Mason-Dixon line, because when you're first elected, you're rostered alphabetically, so W got to be last. I'm right next to them. McCully said it was on IQ, but it actually was on surname. All of these were hardline unionists, Liz Tennant, Larry Sutherland, Graham Kelly, Sonia Davey, every one of them were hardline lefties who hated what Roger had done. And I'm listening to them going, you bastard, you're gone, you're finished, it's all over for you. And I'm thinking, something's wrong here. I'm the last of the Nats sitting, what a fantastic speech. And they're all going, we're going to bloody cut your throat type thing. But what was hilarious was when he finished, I went, and then I realised I was the only one in the Parliament. Not one of his were clapping him, and not one of ours. And Birch stood up at the front and he gave this little curved finger out into the lobby. I get out into the lobby and he said, there's a rule round here, Mr. Williamson. If you can't kick him, don't kiss him.
Yeah.
And I realised that I was right across the line in terms of my behaviour in my first week there.
I reckon, Bolger, if you look at it, those big reforms he took on, the employment market, the labour market. I mean, we are what we are now because when he was Minister of Labour and Prime Minister, you had those huge reforms of the Employment Relations Act.
Employment Contracts Act.
That's significant. Yeah, Employment Contracts is hugely significant.
Yeah,
the power reforms.
The only disappointing thing about the Employment Contracts Act is later in life, Bolger disavowed them and said he thought we'd gone too far and there was no need.
Yeah.
But he was right at the time, and he was, I love the idea of, I think that's Ronald Reagan's strength as a president. He wasn't that great an individual, but he knew how to pick good people, give them a task, tell them you're on notice if you don't succeed, but didn't get involved in trying to meddle with everything on a daily basis. And I think Bolger just said, I've got a good team. They know what they're out to achieve. I'll hold them to account. And I think it's very hard for me. I only really go back as far as Muldoon. I guess I remember John Marshall, but I don't know much about Sid Holland, and I know bugger all about Walter Nash, really. I think Bolger's one of the best prime ministers we've ever had. I do.
I was on a private jet with Shipley and some of the press gallery from Canada, from Ottawa through to Washington. She was the Prime Minister in this plane. And in Washington, on the tarmac waiting for the Canadian private military jet, was the ambassador, Jim Bolger. And this is the first time they'd met since the coup. And Bolger, I thought, was gracious, welcoming, open. Not if he was bitter, he covered it up well, and I think he was quite effective in Washington too. And they managed to pull it together for the cameras, if nothing else. But I thought it was quite impressive of Bolger.
The full story about that whole US thing is quite interesting because I think it speaks to Bolger's pragmatism. He came back from an overseas trip to literally be met at the airport by, I think it was Doug Graham and Don McKinnon, to say, Jenny has the numbers. He spent 24 hours phoning around to see if he could change it, and he couldn't. So he met with Jenny, and he was like, okay, you've got the numbers, but if you want this to be an easy handover rather than put it to a vote, I want to be ambassador to Washington, etc. And they negotiate there. There's even a rumor that because, he had 9 kids and, in Washington, you don't want to go to public schools. They even negotiated that the kids will go to a private school there, etc. And bang, the deal was done, 48 hours later, he's just focusing on, okay, I want to do something meaningful.
Yeah.
But also think about how clear he could have been on this. You're in a third term, highly unlikely you're going to get a fourth in New Zealand. You might, but it's very unlikely because it's that gradual keep eating away, and now it's time for a change. So he's got sort of half a term left to run, and he's probably gone. And now he could have a cushy number as ambassador in Washington. So, if you weigh it up, I'm sorry I've lost the leadership. Bit embarrassing to have been rolled by my own caucus, but we're probably going to be gone in 18 months and not have any job to go to. Yeah. So it wasn't. Yeah. Again, it was gracious of him, and he needs to be given recognition for the way he did it. But it was a pretty good prize he got.
I was playing rugby for the parliamentary rugby team on the Sunday afternoon in Dargaville with Lockwood Smith, Murray McCulley. They were all on the team, and we played the game and we won. And then their phones started going madly off. Like and my parents were there watching the game, and Dad said to me, "God, they're on their phones a lot." And National MP, who shall remain nameless, said to me, "Oh yes, because we're rolling Bolger." And I said, "Oh fuck, what would you know? You've just got here as an MP. Get real, mate." And I laughed him off. And then it sort of firmed up a little bit more that evening. And I rang Linda Clark, who was my boss. And I said, "Linda, I've just come back from this rugby trip with the parliamentary team, but I reckon they're going to roll Bolger." And she scoffed at me, "Oh, Garner, you've been here 5 minutes." I said, "Okay." I hung up. I went to work the next morning and she said to me, "Tell me what you know." It was over. Press conference later that day. And so I was told, and I laughed it off. It was Brownlee. It was Brownlee.
It was the tightest coup I've seen. I've seen a few now because the first media reports on the coup was around 1 p.m. And by around 6:05, they announced there was a change of prime minister. But often the coups, they're reported on over days, etc. Yes. And then you have the public vote. But this coup was only in the public domain for around 4 hours before it was all over.
Correct.
Incredibly tight discipline, apart from Jerry, it seems.
What
and the
Jenny
great helmsman, I was on a ferry to Bluff.
What Jenny did with us, with several of us 2 days before that, is call to sound us out. And I said, I think we've got to go with a fresh look and a fresh team and some fresh ideas, or we're just going to get absolutely obliterated. We got obliterated anyway, so let's get that off the books. So I said, fine. And she said, right, I'm now going to fax you through a piece of paper. I need you to sign it, and I need you to fax it back to me. I said, Jenny, I've given you my word. No, I want to have it in writing. And the fax burst into life. It came, I signed, put it back, pretty grey old shabby piece of fax paper, sent it back to her. And then she said, "No, we're not saying a word till I've got ready to go with my numbers." So it was kept very tight for some time.
I think you were promoted, weren't you? From my recall, you were one of her. You got promoted?
Well, I got some portfolio. She had transport and she didn't want to keep that as Prime Minister, so I got that back. And I got a couple of other, I got science and technology back, but I don't think there was a promotion. I just got them back.
Te Pāti bypass. Bob Simcock, Tony Ryle. That's my memory.
It was, but there's a funny story about that coup committee was called the Te Pāti Bypass Committee, so they could meet without suspicion. But this is wonderful about the professionalism of ministerial staff is Jenny's SPS. When it came to their second meeting, he saw they'd had one meeting, thought he should be a good public servant, and he went to the Ministry of Transport and said, can I have some briefing papers on the Te Pāti Bypass? And he got the reply back saying, we're not aware of any plans for a Te Pāti bypass. So he went to Jenny and said, oh, you've got your meeting tomorrow on the Te Pāti bypass. I've asked for briefing papers, but MOT knows nothing about it. And Jenny sort of had to say, oh, it's just at a very early exploratory stage, etc. Yeah.
I did not know
reckon
that.
I didn't know that either. That's a great story. I reckon the term Great Helmsman came. We were in '96. We went on a ferry to Stewart Island from Bluff, and Richard Griffin was on the ferry with Bolger, and Bolger grabbed the wheel, and I think Griffin was taking the piss out of Bolger and just said, "Oh, the Great Helmsman." And I'm pretty sure something around there that may have stuck. I don't know, but I certainly remember vividly and clearly that afternoon with him taking the helm, and I wonder if that could be it. That could have sourced him there. Who knows? But hey, good stories. Really, really. I knew you guys were right amongst it, thick as Steve. So I appreciate it. Okay, that's us, folks. Thank you for joining us this week. Thank you for watching the podcast. And remember, you can always get hold of me, Duncan at rover.nz. Please subscribe as well. Tell your friends, get them involved. Join Team Duncan. By joining Team Duncan, you therefore save our bacon. You therefore keep us in the game. You therefore are saying to the mainstream media, nah, we like this and we're backing it. So if you can back us financially, we appreciate it. For $7.99, you'll get extra episodes. You can ask me anything, question and answer sessions. You'll become part of the inner circle, Team Duncan, and we'll talk directly. So it's $7.99 if you text my name, Duncan, to 3598, and we'll send you a link, and you're on board. You're in the waka, okay? Stay with us. Don't sink. That's what we're looking for. We don't want to sink. We want to swim. So Duncan to 3598, and let's go. Team Duncan, you'll be part of it. I'll get some merch going too shortly as well. That's us. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your feedback and everything as well. Remember, life's a dress rehearsal. There's no curtain raiser. We live in it. This is it. So get out and enjoy it. And thank you to the Brothers Green Christchurch for backing us. We really appreciate your support as well. Take care, folks. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Duncan Garner, Editor-in-Chief, sponsored by the Brothers Green. Feed your gut what it needs. Digest Gut Health Protein Powder. I use it myself. It supports natural digestion and gut health. Made with premium Canterbury-grown hemp powder and a unique blend of active kiwifruit enzyme powder and kiwifruit skin extract, offering natural prebiotics and a nutrient-rich profile to complement a balanced lifestyle. Always read the label. Take as directed. Supplementary, of course, to a balanced diet. The Brothers Green, Christchurch.